Welcome back to This Week in Film. It's the weekly podcast where we get together and talk about the movies we've seen over the past 7 days. I'm Nick Panotto, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, how's it going?
It's going all right. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. When I said your name, I pointed.
Oh, that's what was going on there.
Yeah. I pointed all the way to Chicago.
That's me in the Midwest.
Chi-Town. So, Matt, we're going to do something a little different this week. We both watched the movie Skyscraper starring The Rock. And we're going to do like a real deep dive into the movie.
A real deep dive into a very shallow movie.
That's right. And we'll just see how this goes. So, here we go. So we watched the movie Skyscraper 2018, written and directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber. And I can't think of anything else this guy has done. I should probably look that up.
I've never heard his name before.
I've never heard the name Rawson before.
That too.
Rawson. Let's see. He did Easy A, which is that movie with Emma Stone, yeah. And he directed Dodgeball. Really? Interesting. Well, now I don't know how to feel about this guy.
I still feel the same.
Because I love Dodgeball. All right.
I enjoyed Dodgeball enough.
So
I haven't seen Easy A.
I haven't either. I think my wife has seen it, and I believe she enjoys it. But this movie, written and directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber, feels like he really wanted to make his own Die Hard. And so he did.
Yeah.
And
it seems like someone told him to write some sort of Die Hard.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's like a PG-13 Die Hard that takes place in Hong Kong. So the movie starts out really dark. There's a really dark beginning. Like the opening.
I have that note too.
Yeah.
It starts with like even just the music before you're even really seeing anything. It's just got this serious tone to it.
Uh-huh. I mean, the first shot is a dead cop who's like bleeding out next to his squad car.
Well, and you're seeing, as far as like the Die Hard thing goes too, you're seeing like snow falling, and I'm like, is this another Christmas movie?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And you don't see any other snow. I have no idea whether it's Christmas or not. Throughout the rest of the movie, there's nothing at all to indicate that it's winter.
Right.
Including what people are wearing.
Right, yeah, because it seems like people are wearing summer clothes and winter coats.
Yeah, I think the only reason that snow was there was to get you prepared for a Die Hard movie.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, once Die Hard, hit the scene, there were movies that were coming out that were being pitched, I think in offices, but also to the public as like, it's Die Hard on a blah, blah, blah. Like Speed was Die Hard on a bus. This one must have been like, it's Die Hard in a building.
It's
like
just,
Die Hard.
It's just Die Hard in a Die Hard.
Or they said it's Die Hard, but in Japan.
Yeah. Hong Kong.
Oh, sorry.
You're racist.
I wasn't completely paying attention throughout this movie. There were a lot of moments where I was like, hey, wait, what just happened? I sort of zoned out, and I'm not bothered to go back and check.
Yeah, I took so many notes during this movie that I've probably missed half of it and don't really care. So we see the dead cop next to his squad car, and the camera zooms out to reveal a very large police presence covering a hostage situation. And inside this cabin,
police ? Because I don't know. I have a note that says police - Army Division?
Right, yeah. That's what I was like. The FBI has their own special forces unit.
Yeah.
So, like, negotiations with the hostage taker break down. And so, like, the FBI sends in the FBI special forces. And The Rock and his team, this is where The Rock comes in. His team rappel down the side of a mountain for some reason. I think just in order to show that The Rock knows how to rappel.
To show rappelling, yeah.
Yeah. And they go up to the back of the cabin where they blow out the back of the cabin with like one of those explosives that like creates a doorway.
Yeah, that explode in one direction.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe things like this sort of exist, but it was a little strange that the explosives on the outside of the wall just brought the whole part of the wall outward.
In the shape of a door, too.
Yeah, pretty much. Like if you had a door on you, you could just hinge it up to that.
Yeah. So they blow up the wall and then they go inside to shoot the man inside. Like that's their job, is to go in and eliminate the target. And once inside, The Rock and his team have this guy totally dead to rights. Like there's like 15 laser sights on the guy, and he slowly turns around and he's holding a child in his arms. And one of the special forces guys has a laser shot on the guy's head. And he's like, I got him, The Rock. And The Rock's like, hold on. Maybe we can talk this out. And that's no longer The Rock's job. The Rock's job is not to talk things out.
Yeah, he's not the negotiator.
Yeah, the negotiator has failed, and then this is your job is to go in.
This is to go in and kill him.
You're the neutralizer. Go in and neutralize. Yeah. And so the guy puts the kid down and reveals that he's got this bomb strapped to his chest, and he blows it up. And this bomb has to kill half of the people in the room.
Well, and so before he even turns around with the kid, he's not holding anything. Like that guy's like, he does not have a kid in his hands. And then when he turns around, like the camera cuts away to The Rock, then it comes back to the guy, and he turns around and he's got a kid.
Oh, is that how it is?
And yeah, well, I mean, in terms of like, this is how they were trying to convince us. It's just stupid. That's what it is. It's visually not compelling. It's like, oh, when they cut to The Rock, someone brought a kid in and put it in that guy's hands because there's no way he was holding a kid beforehand. And then when they cut to The Rock again to see that the guy is, I don't know, getting ready to put down the kid or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Then they put like 80 pounds of explosives on him. Like, this guy's just getting bulkier and bulkier with items on his person.
Uh-huh.
And there's no way any of that was there when they walked in. It's just not.
Right.
So anyway, that bugged me.
Yeah. Well,
there are going to be a lot of moments like that where I'm just like, this just bugged me.
Yeah. Not a good movie. And so like this is all The Rock's fault. Like, it's his call to not shoot the guy. It's his call to try to talk to him, and that gave the guy time to blow up the room. All right, so the next thing that happens is we see The Rock in a fancy Navy hospital, and the doctor is Nev Campbell. And Nev Campbell shows up, and I'm like, is that Nev Campbell? I think it's Nev Campbell. It is Nev Campbell. He's all banged up, like his face is all totally bloodied and bashed and bruised, but he doesn't look like someone 2 feet from a giant explosion should look. And that's how this movie starts. It starts up with the Rock getting exploded.
Did we warn the listeners about spoilers?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
For the entire movie. The next thing that happens is we're in beautiful Hong Kong, and we're learning about this fancy supergiant skyscraper. And based on the title of the movie, this is where the rest of the movie will be taking place. Or so you think. We see some news reports from a variety of different news networks that all conveniently tell us the story about the supergiant skyscraper and how wonderful it is.
Oh, and how it's been mankind's singular desire to touch the sky. I had a real problem with that because men want to do humankind, or men specifically also want to touch lots of other things. Just ask the president. I don't think everyone's like, yeah, the singular desire we have, the one thing we want to do is touch the sky.
I mean, I'm reaching up right now, and I'm like, this is pretty great.
Oh,
I wish
see, prove me wrong.
I wish I could be half a mile higher doing this. We see The Rock, and he looks none the worse for wear, except he's missing a leg. And he does have one fancy prosthetic leg that we assume that he lost his leg in the explosion.
Well, side note here on this whole, when they're talking about the skyscraper as like the little pitch that says like, you know, mankind wants to reach the sky, all that. They also use the phrase "spared no expense."
I wrote
it
that
became
down.
really clear to me in that moment that like Jurassic Park 100% owns that phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote that note down too. I wrote that down. And I have a thought that follows it when we get to it.
Oh, I thought we were there.
Nope. Well, you know,
My bad.
they do say spare no expense, but well, I guess we can go through it now. But the Rock owns some kind of company that isn't very clear. He's some sort of fire inspector guy.
Security safety consultant.
Yeah, something like that. And the reason that he got the job in Hong Kong is because one of his ex special forces guys who also got blown up because his neck has slightly damaged. So the Rock's job is to inspect buildings for security and fire safety, whatever. And his buddy that got him the job was one of his special forces mates. And
you can tell because he's got a burned face.
Or his neck. His face is pretty fine, but his neck is slightly disfigured. And
when they see each other, they're like, brother.
Right.
Brother. Yeah. Anyway.
And so this is where he's hiring The Rock because The Rock is so cheap. He's like, you cost so much less than the other security consultants. And
I think that's what they said to Neve Campbell, too, when they hired her for the movie. and don't get me wrong, I actually really like Neve Campbell. I was excited to see her in something again. But when that line popped, I was like, that explains she's here. She's not expensive.
But I was like, this building spared no expense except for the corners it's cutting to hire The Rock to do some fire protection in order to get insurance clearance for the building.
Yeah, that cut the corners.
Yeah.
Do you remember how tall the building's actually supposed to be?
No. I know the fire starts on the fire starts on like the 98th floor, which looked about halfway up.
Yeah, and they keep saying like the top half.
Yeah.
Which also sounded weird. Like I felt like you know how like with boats you can't say like the side of the boat or like the floor. There are like specific words for it.
Right.
I feel like in building terms there would be something for like the upper half and the bottom half. They just keep saying the top half of the building. I'm like,
the top half.
That's what I would call it. But
the top half is like, called the scraper.
There we go. That's not true, I'm sure. Sounds good enough.
We meet The Rock. He's getting dressed for his day at work, wearing the clothes he'll wear for the whole movie. He puts on his fancy prosthetic legs and leg, right? His fancy prosthetic leg. And then we learn that The Rock is a good husband and a good father. And we know that he's really good with technology because he knows how to fix his wife's phone by turning it off and turning it on again.
Mm-hmm. Straight out of the IT crowd.
Right. It's something that's so blatant that you're like, this is how the movie's going to end, isn't it?
Right.
So then a friend, the Rock's friend shows up and immediately red flags.
Well, hang on. Because as they're showing that he's a good family man, they also are showing how much his family loves him and how much Neve Campbell is more capable than The Rock. Like, aside from the phone thing, up to that point that she asks him to restart her phone, which she seems to do just for the sheer joy of it anyway. She's like, I like when you restart it. She's talking to him like he's like 5 years old. Like, she's getting him ready for school. And not just because she's straightening his tie, but also just the way she's talking to him and the way he's looking at her. Like, he's like a deer in headlights. And I get that, I don't know, maybe the implication there is that, like, because he messed up once, but he should have shot that guy, he's nervous about messing up again. Ignoring the fact that he's built this company that he has for however many years. And she's basically like giving him the go to school, it'll be fine, you'll make friends speech so he can go to work.
Yeah, you're right. That's great. So then after that, The Rock's friend shows up and it's his buddy from the Special Forces with the messed up neck. He shows up and immediately red flags started going off on him. I was like, this guy's no good. He's a bad egg right here.
Yeah, there's no, like, even you see him like, oh well, I guess that comes later. But this movie just doesn't wait very long to be like, by the way, this guy's in on it. Like,
right.
There's no, it's not a twist.
Yeah, he does seem to have all his limbs, though. He doesn't look like he lost any arms or legs. So he's got that going for him. The Rock's family goes off to the zoo to meet some pandas, and The Rock goes off to work.
Yeah. The dude makes a big deal about how, you guys are gonna get to see the late night panda feeding. Yeah. And I was like, okay, the late night part makes sense because you find out, I don't know, 15 minutes later that they're trying to keep them out of the house. But panda feeding, I'm like, pandas eat bamboo, and they do it the whole time. Right. So on one hand, I'm like, first of all, tons of people have seen pandas eating. Second of all, they're just eating bamboo. It's not like you're watching the chicken dangle over the crocodile at some sort of reptile preserve. You're just watching a thing chew on some plants.
Adorably.
And the kids don't even. Oh, I was gonna say the kids don't even look excited, but here's the thing: nobody in this movie, aside from Nev Campbell, is putting in an ounce of effort. Right. Nobody gives a shit. It's kind of ridiculous because, like, The Rock, his biggest thing is that he's got tons of charisma, and I don't know if you had really felt this way at this point in the movie, but I think I was already off to kind of a bad start, going, I don't feel like The Rock's really into this.
Yeah, I had that feeling too.
Oh, and it just sticks, and it just gets worse throughout the rest of the movie. But anyway, the guy's like, yeah, you're going to get to see the panda feeding, and the kids are like, okay.
Then we find out that one of the kids has asthma, and immediately I'm like, all right, so I know this building gets lit on fire. The kid has asthma. He's probably going to need an inhaler. It's just like Panic Room.
And every other goddamn movie, it's just signs. I don't know, but like most movies with kids, I mean, it's a joke at this point to go, like, when there's a kid in a movie, you can go, do they have asthma?
Right.
Half the time they will. I mean, I put a note in big caps and underlined with an exclamation point that says, fucking kid has asthma. and how, Nick, how'd that turn out? Did the asthma ever even play a relevant role in anything? Was there any need at all for that kid to have asthma?
There was one moment when the building's on fire where the kid is short of breath, and so he just uses the inhaler again.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And you know who else should have been short of breath?
The Rock.
Everyone in the building breathing in smoke. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
The asthma does nothing in this movie, and they could have saved themselves the embarrassment of just not having.
Yeah, they could have just not had asthma.
Yep.
So The Rock goes off with his friend to meet the owner of the Skyscraper, who's like at the top of the skyscraper, and then The Rock's family goes to the bottom of the skyscraper because inside the skyscraper there's like a zoo, there's a mall, there's all kinds of stuff. and the reason the Rock is in the building is to approve the fire suppression systems of the residential areas which are about to open, and that's where the Rock's family is staying, is in the residential area. This building's so big it's got a zoo. The guy that the Rock meets who owns the building is Chin Han, and he played the money guy in The Dark Knight who says he's good at calculation. And for a while I thought it was BD Wong, the Dr. Wong from Jurassic Park.
Oh, who's the racist now?
Han?
Yeah, and he's being shown around.
Yeah.
There's like a room of mirrors.
The most impractical room that there ever was. And
inside, and it's inside the Pearl. Now the whole building's called the Pearl, right?
Right, yeah.
But the Pearl itself
is a giant ball at the top of the skyscraper.
It's a silver tennis ball.
Yeah.
It even has the swirly pattern on it. And that's where they are while they're having this chat.
Yeah. He the guy Han gives the Rock a fancy iPad that's like loaded to scan his face and will give him access to the off-site security location, which is where all the fire prevention controls are. And then that's when they're going to the Pearl, which I will only refer to as the holodeck at this point. And it can only, a room like this only exists for a climax of a movie to be. There's no other reason a fancy digital hall of mirrors for the Rock to exist except for the Rock to have a shootout inside it. And then for some reason, the Rock's friend gets a text saying, get the Rock on a boat. So they go on a boat.
Well, wait. Because while they were up there, one of the things that this guy does is he, I don't know, turns on cameras that make it look like it's cameras that show stuff inside that make it look like you're just floating in air.
Yeah.
Like way above the ground. And now, so if you were standing in a building and then suddenly everything disappeared from underneath you.
Uh-huh.
Now I have a fear of heights. So, which only at one point in this entire movie ever did anything for me. But I think even if you didn't have a fear of heights, having this whole building disappear from underneath you would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, the
Rock's response is,
the Rock grabs at his chest.
Sort of.
He kind of just goes like, "Oh my."
Yeah, it's about it. It's like take Keanu Reeves' whoa from The Matrix, subtract about half of it, and you've got the Rock's response to being suddenly in the middle of the sky.
And then the guy leaves him in the room where the door shuts and closes, and there's no way for the Rock to get out. Like, the Rock must immediately forget where the door is and totally lose himself in this super digital room.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see the next scene where he's just putting his hands against the invisible wall, trying to find the door.
For the next 30 minutes, it's just the Rock knocking on a wall. Hello?
And taking every step really cautiously as though he might fall off the edge of something because he can't see anything.
And that never comes back again, that the fact that the room turns into like the outside, it never comes back.
Doesn't.
Then for some reason the Rock's friend has to get the Rock on a boat, so the next scene they're on a boat. The Rock tells his friend about how great his life has been since the explosion. And the friend is like, "Yeah, things sound great for you. I've had a rough time of it."
Well, and the way he says something like the Rock's like, "Oh man, if I didn't have my family, I'd have nothing. If I didn't have my family, I'd be," and the guy's like, "Me?"
Yeah.
And I was like, did his family die? Like, what is the implication here? Like, just that it sucked since he got blowed up? Uh-huh. Or is it like, I don't know. It makes it sound like everyone around him he's extra alone. Meanwhile, like, the guy looks fine. He's got some burn on his neck, but he's successful and seems pretty well adjusted.
Yeah. Seems like things are okay for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was back an additional 2 feet, so that's why he probably wasn't that affected by the explosion.
Yeah, well, and I guess maybe he just meant that he's single, and that's just the worst thing in the world.
It really is. It
It's
really
like
is.
it's like they snuck a old school chick flick into this.
Yeah.
The sequel is him going out there and getting into the dating pool.
So then,
Except it's not.
So then the next thing that happens is this guy on the boat runs up to the rock and steals his purse and then cuts the rock on the arm. I like to say that he stole the rock's purse because the rock is so big that even a regular sized bag looks small on him.
Yeah, it's true.
The next thing that happens is we're at the offsite building location and there's a wall, there's like a worker, and he looks at the wall and the wall is like slowly cracking and collapsing in front of him, and he like walks over to it, and then the wall just reveals a tunnel is being dug into this building, and someone grabs him by the throat and kills him, and a team of bad guys climbs out of the tunnel.
Well, and this is another one of those things, just like the guy who turns around with the kid and had no kid before that, and then turns around with a bomb and had no bomb on him before that. Because here, the guy has a flashlight that he scopes this hole out for like a good 20 seconds or so. It's very clear that he doesn't see anything.
Yeah.
And then an arm bursts out and strangles him.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So then that scene's over and we're at the Rock's friend's house where he has like a medical kit and he's patching up the Rock's arm. And then the Rock pulls out of his gigantic breast pocket of his coat this iPad and his wallet. And the guy's like, "Oh, you have the iPad still?" And he's like, "Yeah, I kept it in my pocket." Like, you cannot fit an iPad in a pocket. It's too big. It's just...
Well, you're not as big as The Rock.
That's true. Yeah, I don't have
The Rock's pockets are huge.
Yeah. And so then the guy's like, "Oh," and he goes to the bathroom and like makes a phone call. But meanwhile, back at the Skyscraper, Nev Campbell and the kids come home early. I forget why.
Oh, because the kid ate some crappy candy and got sick.
Is that really why?
Oh, yeah, because then she says to him, "Yeah, little stupid boy," whatever his name is, "he threw up." And The Rock does not care. He's like, "Oh, is he okay?" Like, there's no like, oh no, he missed out on something. Is he all right? It's just like, "Oh yeah, is he all right?"
Yeah.
Okay.
I got. He's like, "Is he okay?"
Does not care.
Yeah. Well, I got stabbed today. That's how my day's going. And so then Nev Campbell runs into a bad guy in the hallway, and he's clearly a bad guy. Like, there's all kinds of red flags going up about this guy. Nev Campbell is immediately suspicious, but does nothing about it. And then,
right, yeah, he's like practically molesting the kids with like the way he's interacting with them.
Was he in their apartment? Or were they
I think he was headed towards it.
Yeah.
I think they were outside the apartment, and he was like coming one way out of like a stairwell or something, and she was coming the other way from like an elevator, and they were kind of running into each other right in front of the apartment that they were staying in.
All right. So she's suspicious of that guy, and then that scene ends. And then we're back at The Rock at his friend's house, and his friend comes out of the bathroom and points a gun at The Rock. And then they start to fight. And the only way to make the fight even is for the friend to shoot The Rock's fake leg off and have The Rock hopping around.
And there's a half second where the guy ends up with the leg in his hands, and it looks like he's about to beat The Rock with his own leg. It's very weird. And it doesn't quite happen, like The Rock blocks it or something, but I have a note that says, "Was he about to beat The Rock with his own leg?"
Yeah.
And like 3 question marks.
They go back and forth for a while, and then eventually the guy accidentally shoots himself while trying to shoot The Rock. So that's how that guy dies, and the guy's like, "Your family's already dead, probably," and then he dies.
And while this is going on, the Hong Kong version of Elon Musk is finding out that his building's on fire, right?
No, not yet. Because
Okay.
at the tower, the evil guy who was just like with Nev Campbell, him and a crew of people who are all wearing gas masks are pouring some mysterious powder on the ground. And on the side of the bottle of the powder, it says that it will ignite when exposed to water. Why does a powder like that exist? What? What? Science has gone too far. Science needs to rein it in. There should never be a powder that can just combine with water and create fire.
Well, I think sodium in its pure form is reactive to water in and of itself. So it might not even be a super technological advancement thing. It might just be harnessing what's naturally there.
Oh, science needs to be stopped. Then
you just want to take a few things out of the periodic table and do some editing.
Just get rid of no more helium, no more sodium, and no more boron. I think boron's an element.
It sounds right.
So then these guys who are wearing the gas masks, they're pouring this dust or this powder into the room. And then the room is filled with this powder from just being kicked up. And then when they're done pouring, they all take their gas masks off while the powder is still in the room.
Yeah, they're still there.
And then the one bad guy lights a flare, and he holds the flare up to the fire like the sprinkler system to start the water coming down, which ignites the powder and starts the fire in the building.
And then Hong Kong Elon Musk finds out.
Yeah.
And just does not give a fuck. He's like, yeah, well, it'll be contained there. And I'm like, I get that he isn't scared of the fire because of the security stuff that's built in.
Yeah.
But you should still be surprised that it's on fire. I think you should still go, hey, wait a minute, a floor of my building's on fire? That's not good.
Yeah.
Inherently. Not even that there's a threat from it, but just that's not how it's supposed to be. But he not shocked at all, doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, he's like, I could care less that the building's on fire. He's like, it's a giant building. It's going to catch on fire every now and then.
It's almost like he's waiting for it. Like, yeah, I was waiting to test out this system. Let me show you.
So, meanwhile, at the off-site location, which is where that tunnel was, the group of bad guys, including like this super badass chick, kill everyone that works there. And then they run some program on the computer which locks the fire controls out. Like they lock the tower out of the fire controls, and they turn off all of the fire suppression measures in the building. And is this where the one like computer nerd guy is like, I'm the only person in the world that knows how to fix this. Isn't that super great? I'm so cool. And then the girl shoots him in the head.
Right. Like, and you can totally see it coming too, as he's saying, like, I'm the only one that could do something. Like, you're so dead.
Yeah, I'm like, you're a dead man. You should say at least someone else has it. Don't ever say you're the only person who can do something.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Unless someone's actively threatening to kill you right then, and you're saying, like, I'm the only one who can do it, so don't get rid of me.
Yeah. So then we go back to the Rock at the bad guy's apartment. He is leaving the building, and is this where there's like a whole bunch of bad guys and cops show up and there's a shootout?
Yeah, I think. And in the meantime, the girl without the dragon tattoo grabs his the iPad or whatever. And wait, hang on. So they cross paths. So yeah, he's running away. Yeah, so you can get into the details of this a little bit more. But he runs away, and then they catch up with him, and she needs his face for something.
Yeah.
And I thought, if they needed his face to unlock this thing, why would they try to take it away from him to begin with?
Right, exactly. They need his face to unlock the iPad, which controls access to the off-site location, but they're already in the off-site location. So I don't know why they need the iPad at all. So So then there's like this big shootout with the police, and the Rock steals a cop's motorcycle and starts riding towards the skyscraper that he can see is on fire. when he gets to he gets as close as he can get, and he can see that there's a giant the building's on fire and there's no way he'll be able to get into the building. He sees that there's a giant crane next to the building, and he goes, "That's how I'm going to get into the tower." He climbs to the top of the crane on the outside of the crane, and the police are chasing him.
Which seems to surprise him. He's climbing up this crane next to a burning building. The size of he's The Rock. He's huge.
Yeah.
He also just assaulted a bunch of cops. And then when people are chasing him to they're running to the thing, he's like, "Oh no!" like crap, they noticed me.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the news cameras start following him. And this crowd that has gathered below to watch this entire drama unfold is pointing and cheering and reacting to everything The Rock does. So The Rock slowly climbs up 98 floors of crane, exterior of this crane, and he gets to the top, and he gets into the crane control, the controls for the crane, and he knows how to use a crane for some reason.
I was gonna say, and as he gets in there, there's a kind of funny moment, and there aren't many in this movie. There's just not a lot of fun actually in this movie. But there's a tiny little moment where he gets ready to bust open the door to the crane, and then he's like, "Oh, I can just open it."
Oh yeah, that was a great little moment. I love that. That was wonderful. I was like, man, this movie needs more of this.
Tons more.
Yeah, and but he knows how to use the crane. If I got into a crane with digital controls, not just levers, this thing has a touchscreen control interface, I wouldn't know where to begin. And he knows exactly what to do. He has to turn the crane, extend a walkway, lower the hook.
Well, and he's using a touch screen that doesn't even have his language on it.
Right. And so he starts swinging the giant hook into the building because he's trying to make a walkway. So he swings the hook, throws it one time, and it grabs trepidarily. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Let's go with trepidarily.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
And it hooks to the building trepidarily, and it means not very well. And
it's only slightly hooked on.
Right. And so The Rock gets out. The cops are just about to get to him, and he just starts running down the ramp, and he just jumps. He jumps from the crane to the side of the skyscraper, and he makes it. But
and it's a good 20 feet.
Yeah. And he's just barely he just barely makes it. So he's hanging on to the building, and he's hanging on to this metal thing, a metal sheet that in the real world, if he was holding it, it would probably just slice his fingers off.
Absolutely. I wrote, hand would be shredded.
Yeah, and he's just holding on to it.
And here's the best part of this too. If you've even seen a preview for this movie, you've seen all of this.
Yeah.
And you've seen the entire movie, by the way. You don't need to see this movie.
Yeah. You've seen it before, especially if you saw the preview. You're like, "Oh, he's got magic legs. He's climbing a building. He's The Rock, which means he's going to win." Spoiler alert, he's going to win.
Well, and while he's getting ready to jump to this building too, they're like, "No, don't let him jump. Shoot him."
Yeah.
They all think he's going to die anyway.
Well, they think The Rock is involved with the fire. They think he's working with the bad guys.
Yeah, but I don't know if escape into a burning building is all that good of a reason to start firing down towards humans.
Yeah. Well, the laws
aren't some of the shots coming from above, and they're a helicopter or something?
Yeah, the laws are different in Hong Kong. They just you don't get the due process you do in America.
Right.
So then, meanwhile, the building's on fire just outside of Nev Campbell's apartment, And she takes the kids into the bathroom. They take all of their towels and start dunking them in water so that they can wear them as they try to make their escape. And then the little girl says, "Are we going to die?" I'm like, what do you think your mom's going to say, kid? What do you think?
I like that your problem's with the kid asking and not Nev Campbell's 20-second pause before she says no.
Well,
like she's really debating in her mind, like, how honest do I get with this kid?
Right, yeah.
Do I give her the odds? Do I say, well, there's a good chance we won't, but we may as well try. Yeah. Well, and then eventually she goes, no.
All I can think is if my kids asked me that, I'd be like, are you crazy? What are you talking about?
You yell at them. That's good too.
Yeah. This is not the time nor the place, kid. Come on.
Shut up and run.
Just put this over your face and run. Don't cry. Stop crying.
We don't have time to talk about it.
Next thing we see the Elon Musk guy. They're trying to decide whether or not they should evacuate the building. And so he's got like his head of security who's like, we should leave. And then there's like another guy who's like a real Weasley type guy who I think is in a Harry Potter movie, but I'm not sure. The Weasley.
He was in some. When he popped up, I was like, oh, I know his face from some stuff he was in when he was younger, and he's always kind of like, yeah.
I feel like he's one of the potions teachers from Harry Potter or something, but I didn't take the time to look it up.
I'll check it out while you're explaining it.
So they're like, he says, we should evacuate the building. And the guy's like, I don't want to evacuate. He's like, well, we should get ready to evacuate in case we have to. And Elon Musk is like, okay, well, hold on. Let me go to my apartment and open my giant safe that I have locked behind a super door. And inside the safe is just this one little device. And then it's right around this point that the movie starts showing us a lot of reaction shots of the crowd that is gathered below. So for the rest of the movie, they keep showing these people who are watching the news unfold on these giant monitors, and it's as if the movie is trying to tell us how to feel by the reactions of the crowd. I feel like it gets really obnoxious, and I know the movie was made for mostly international audiences, but do they really need to spell it out so heavily? I know in like a Japanese game show, they show a lot of reaction shots to everything so that the people watching at home know what emotion they're supposed to be feeling. And I'm like, is that what they're doing with this movie too? Like they're unsure if they're supposed to be cheering for The Rock or not cheering for The Rock. That's what it feels like, is that, oh, we're going to see the crowd. Oh, okay. Yay. The Rock made it. Yay. The Rock made it. And it gets really obnoxious. I got really sick of seeing the crowd react to things.
Update on this guy. His name's Noah Taylor.
Noah Taylor.
He was in Paddington 2.
Good movie.
See that you might have seen him there. He's in Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I hear that's a great show.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Awesome movie.
He was in a season of Game of Thrones.
Oh, who was he in Game of Thrones?
He was in 8 episodes. His name was Locke. With an E at the end.
Oh, I don't remember him at all.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
That movie sucked.
Yeah. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Not a fan of that movie.
I am.
Really?
I'm never going to watch it again because I don't want to spoil my experience with it.
Yeah.
But it's stuck in my head for like 11 years trying to figure out whether I liked it or not.
I've tried watching it.
I did.
I've tried watching it a few times because everybody says how great it is, and like I always just fall asleep. Like, I think it's really boring.
It's got a great soundtrack.
I don't even remember.
But yeah, I don't see any Harry Potter stuff.
No? Okay. So. Well, I'm still going to refer to him as the Harry Potter guy.
Of course.
Meanwhile, in the tower, the fire is chasing Nev Campbell and her family. Like it's personal. The fire is chasing them around.
Without any smoke, by the way.
Yeah, no smoke.
This whole building's on fire. Nobody's got smoke inhalation problems except the kid's 1 second of asthma. And there's just no smoke at all. It's just like, wow, this this fire really wants me to be able to see and admire Nev Campbell's face.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
And
I don't mind that. But.
So it's at this point that like part of the security team has come down to rescue Nev Campbell. And right at this moment, the bad guys in the offsite location turn on all the vents to give the fire oxygen to like give it room to like expand. And it's like setting off 100 bombs in the building. Like the fire shoots up the elevator shafts, killing these two guys. The fire spreads all over the building.
Oh, yeah, it explodes out of there.
Yeah.
Like those guys, and The Rock gets to see it through the phone.
It's like backdraft.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, especially given that the rest of the movie, the fire seems to be taking forever to get to the top.
Yeah.
And there's a dramatic line where a guy's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, a $3.5 billion chimney."
Yeah.
And it's dumb.
So then we get back to the owner, and the Weasley Harry Potter guy is like, you just know he's in on it, and he out of nowhere just pulls a gun on the security guy and the Elon Musk guy and starts shooting them. And then because they're going to the helicopter, they are gonna leave the building.
The helo, as they call it.
Yeah. And the security guy goes, "No, we're not going to get on the helicopter. That's not our pilot." For some reason, he recognizes that it's not the pilot, and that means don't get on the plane. And the Weasley guy just starts shooting people, and then all the other terrorists show up, and there's a big shootout. They're going to take the Elon Musk guy hostage. And the security guy is still alive, and with his last breath, he shoots the helicopter pilot in the face, which causes him to move the helicopter forward and explode, creating a distraction that allows the Elon Musk guy to run to his apartment, which is also a panic room, and then that's how he gets away. That was ridiculous.
It's dumb. It's dumb.
Yeah.
And this movie totally, we're going to come back to this, lacking heart and charisma.
Yeah.
This movie totally lacks heart and charisma. And I don't know how that's possible. I think maybe like The Rock must just be overworked because he's been in so much stuff. And it's not all The Rock's fault, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's the movie itself. There's just so no fun in it.
Yeah.
And you know, we've been talking about this for a while. I don't even know how far into the movie this must be. Like maybe like an hour.
Yeah, I don't know. Now. But I remember pausing it at like a certain point around here and going, "Oh my God, it's only halfway over."
Yeah, and I don't think it's that long of a movie in terms of minutes.
I think it's over 2 hours.
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
Because I know there was one point where I paused it and I wrote, "Still 38 minutes?" question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah.
And that was sometime after this. But anyway, so yeah, that all happens. The guy gets into his panic room apartment, and then the weasel guy starts looking for Nev Campbell.
Right.
Meanwhile, The Rock is like... Wait, what happens? Go ahead.
This is I think my favorite part of the movie is where we're back with The Rock. He's inside the building now, and he's like in a little utility closet, and he's got this big piece of shrapnel sticking out of his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he pulls it out.
It doesn't look too big when it's in there, but he's pulling it out for like 3 seconds.
Right.
And it's like 8 inches long.
Yeah. And he's got like this wound of duct tape, and he says, and I have the quote, "If you can't fix it with duct tape, you didn't use enough duct tape." And he just starts duct taping his wound, which is such a bad idea.
Well, I won't judge that, because I'd probably do that if I didn't just pull that thing out and die. Yeah. But I did think, really? You're cracking duct tape jokes while you're trying to save your family?
Right. Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Then we're back with Nev Campbell and the kids, and she runs into the Weasley guy, and she's just looking for help. and this guy shows up, and she's like, "Oh, thank God, you're here to help us." And for no reason, the guy just pulls a gun on her. It's like, "You're coming with me," and she's like, "I was gonna go with you anyway. Why would you pull a gun on me?" And
Right.
anyway, the mom and the kids, they all get separated.
Oh, well, and she just kicks his ass.
Is that what happens?
Yeah, she just starts like she, I think, knocks the gun out of his hand. She like beats him up a bit. The kids do end a little separated because there's tons of fire.
Tons of fire, but no smoke.
And then then the guy gets back up and somehow gets sort of the upper hand. I don't know. She's still holding her own. Nev Campbell's pretty kick-ass in this movie. But then The Rock shows up and knocks the guy off the side of a broken bridge like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like he knocks him off and then just turns to Nev Campbell. He's like, "You okay?"
Yeah.
Just no half second of like anger towards the guy. No, he doesn't even watch him fall, and that's a real fault of this movie because you've got a huge building and you don't see anyone actually fall.
Right.
You see them sort of fall off and like disappear, but you don't see the falling. Like, if you're going to be Die Hard, at the end of Die Hard, Alan Rickman's falling in slow motion, looking up at the camera.
We get a dummy shot of someone falling, all the stories, and then you hear somebody hit the ground.
Yeah, this is like, he's gone. Don't even think about it. Like, The Rock turns to Nev Campbell and asks how she's doing, almost as if the movie wants us to not process the fact that The Rock just killed the dude.
Yeah.
Like, it wants to move on so fast. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And this whole thing... Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, he shows up with an axe. He's got this giant fire axe, and he, like, hits the guy with, like, the stick part of the axe to knock him off the ledge. And it's like the PG-13 is killing this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if this movie was Die Hard, The Rock would have hit him with the axe, and that's how he would have fell to his death.
Right.
But like he's got this giant axe, and he like uses it in like 2 different scenes, and he never hits anyone with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then so here, and I think this is like how they try to. Sorry, I adjust my headset. How they try to make up for the PG-13 is with a bit of like ridiculousness. So like the kids get separated. So there's Nev Campbell's on one end of this bridge and it's broken in the middle. The son's on the other side, and then the daughter's somewhere like above them.
Yeah.
And they build a bridge with some big plank that the Rock just rips off using the axe from this well-constructed building. And then, like, they have Nev Campbell go out across the bridge while the Rock is... I'm not sure how this is working.
I don't either.
He's holding the bridge together, but it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
He's just holding these 2 cables... as hard as he can. He's just holding them up, which is like keeping the whole bridge together.
Yeah. And it's not shot in a way that helps you understand what's going on. Yeah. It's shot in such a way that it looks like The Rock's just pretending.
Yeah.
like the way you might, like, if you were like fishing with a kid and you were fishing for a huge fish and you're like, sure, you can put your hands on the pole and pretend you're the one pulling the fish in. Yeah. It's like The Rock's doing that with himself. He's like, yeah, I'll hold the bridge together.
Yeah. And like,
cool.
It doesn't even look like he's
doing that.
It doesn't even look like he's straining or anything.
Oh, that's because he's not trying.
He's just like standing there, like just like, you gotta hurry up. I can't hold this forever. And I'm like, what are you even holding?
Yeah, it's fucking dumb. And then she jumps with the kid at the last second before he, quote unquote, drops the bridge.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, and it's exactly the sort of thing that should be fun, even just to laugh at.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not. It's boring.
Just not. I'm having more fun just complaining about it right now than I would have laughing while I was watching it happen. It's so much of this movie is just rolling your eyes. It's just, what the hell?
It's
and
like
to follow. Go ahead.
It's like they didn't know what to do with The Rock. Like they're like, oh, we got The Rock, but he's going to do all these strongman things.
Sort of. Yeah. They didn't know they were doing anything here. Yeah, so then The Rock gives Nev Campbell some instructions that I don't understand at all. He's like, hey, finally, most of us are together. We got one daughter to get a hold of. Let's split up. Yeah, you take our son and ride down this elevator. I'm going to unloose the elevator. You have to unloose something too. Eventually the brakes will kick in, but you got to do something once you count to 5.
Yep, that's what I wrote down too. I'm like, so the Rock puts Nev Campbell and the kid in an elevator, and he's gonna chop the cable that holds the elevator with an axe, which I don't think is possible, but he is the Rock. And he says
we had rock power.
So like they're on the 90th something floor, and the Rock says you're gonna count to 5 and pull this lever, and that's gonna turn the brakes on. And I'm like, why not just tell them pull the brakes when you're out of the fire?
Right.
Just wait.
But instead, he does all this math, I guess, in his head about terminal velocity and shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, now count to 5.
You're going to count to 5 and then pull the lever.
Now here's what actually happens. He chops the thing. They start falling. There's time to see both of them reacting to this. Probably about 5 seconds worth of that.
Yeah.
And then
like
Nev Campbell goes, hey, kid.
Yeah.
Count with me.
Yeah. Like she should already be at 4.
Yeah. And then they're like, 1, 2. It's like the fucking owl from the Tootsie Pop commercial. So, a 1, a 2, a 3. And then they pull the thing and it works just fine. But what should have happened is they should have been dead already.
Yeah.
They should have smashed into the ground because they waited till they were halfway down to start counting to begin with.
Yeah.
It was, oh God, it's just the worst. And now that I think about it, I'll bet you, the one thing I wanted to give the movie credit for was Nev Campbell being a badass. But you know what? They probably wouldn't have done that if in Die Hard, the wife wasn't also a badass.
Right.
Because she was. And, oh, God, this fucking movie.
Yeah. So then The Rock goes to rescue his daughter, but on the way, he's got to fight some guys and still isn't able to hit anyone with his axe. I'm like, if this movie was Die Hard, we'd see some good axing action. But instead, he just hits a pipe with it and then like lets it go. Anyway, The Rock's daughter gets kidnapped, and the bad guy tells The Rock, like, The Rock gets into a fight with these bad guys. The bad guys get the upper hand, and he tells The Rock that he needs to figure out how to get into Elon Musk's panic room where they're going to kill his daughter. And so The Rock is like, okay, well, I guess I'll figure out how to get into this unbreakable room. And he notices that the TV is still working, and he goes over to the TV, and there's like a news report about something. Oh, I guess that's how he finds out his wife gets out, right?
Yeah. He's trying to save his daughter, and he's really worried about her, but then he sees his son and his wife got out, and he's like, yippee!
Yeah. And then he goes, hey, this TV is also a computer. I could use the computer to figure out where the power is for this door. And the power is on the giant wind turbine that's on the outside of the building. And he goes, okay, I just have to go to that.
Yeah. And this is the long version of it, because in reality, what happens is he goes, oh my God, there's got to be a way to open the doors. Bleep, bleep, bleep. Oh, there we go. It's right there in the turbines.
Exactly.
It's not the greatest news to find out that that's where it is, but in terms of going, oh my God, there's this dilemma before me. However, will I figure out an answer? I've got one.
Right.
It happens like that. And shortly before this, I want to go back for a second because I'm wondering if you heard this. There's a interaction with The Rock and some guy who he's struggling with in like a metal hallway. And when he punches the guy, it's like this biggest, superest punch sound.
It sounds like
ever.
a super Indiana Jones punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
did hear that.
I drew the whole like sound effect thing from like a Batman show and wrote punch.
Punch.
It's
Yeah.
so loud.
Yeah, it sounded like two pieces of meat being slapped together. Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah. That was ridiculous.
And here's we didn't even talk about the fact that these people were introduced before, but like Nev Campbell's meeting these two people who are like investigating what's going on.
Oh,
They're
cops.
police people of some sort. And I don't know how this was in the theater, but the version of this that I saw didn't have any subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, Nev Campbell can tell what they're saying because she speaks a bunch of different languages.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Does it matter? No.
Doesn't matter. You could figure it all out by context.
Yeah.
Because at some point they start speaking English and you're like, okay, they think The Rock is involved. She's going to somehow prove that The Rock isn't involved. Okay, so Nev Campbell now works with the police. The Rock figures out the only way to get into the panic room is by climbing along the outside of the building, jumping inside these giant wind turbines that power the whole building. And then in order to climb on the ledge, The Rock throws this big thing at the window. Like he throws this.
It's just a thing.
It's just like this big
thing.
This
Whatever.
big heavy thing. He throws it at the window and it just bounces off. And The Rock goes, "Oh yeah!" And so he backs up like 2 steps and throws it harder, and it smashes through the window.
And he almost falls out the window.
Yeah. And so he gets some rope, and then he gets some more duct tape from somewhere, and duct tapes his hands all up so that he can stick to the side of the
Spider-Man
building.
his way across the building.
I thought that was a little clever. I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea for if you're going to do something like that, to have a little bit of sticky. But
yeah,
but
I guess
duct tape, duct tape
it's not going to work.
It would last for 10 seconds, Well,
I mean, The Rock's got to weigh 260 pounds.
Yeah.
Ain't no fucking duct tape going to keep him stuck to the side of a building.
So he brings this length of rope with him too.
He admits this though, and the movie gets very meta for a half second because he goes, "This is stupid."
This is stupid. Before climbing out the window, and I was like, "You're right, The Rock. This is stupid."
Yes. But there is a lot of duct tape. Duct tape is probably third build after Nev Campbell.
There's a great moment later on when he meets up with Elon Musk, and he's like, "We got to come up with a plan." And Elon Musk says, "Well, what should we do?" And The Rock looks at him and he goes, "Do you got any duct tape?" And I genuinely laughed at that. I was like,
I gave that the second bit of charm. There was that other thing where he opened the door instead of having to bust it open, and that joke, and that was it.
I was like, that's pretty good. Nice job, movie. You got me. So he makes his way over to the computer reset cable. He chops it, and then there's an explosion underneath him, and the wind turbine starts going super fast. And he goes, "Well, I guess I'll just jump now." He just jumps.
but on his way over there, he I don't know if it's a pipe or what it is. There's something that's sticking out of the wall.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, it was pretty convincing. For the first time, it was like Dwayne Johnson cared. Dwayne Johnson's the name of The Rock, by the way. And The Rock grabs onto this pipe like he loves it. And that I actually appreciated, because as someone who is afraid of heights, I was thinking man, he's just acting like he can go across here with no concern whatsoever. But then he gets to this pipe and he's like, "Thank God I can hold on to something." I'm like, "Oh, okay, fair enough."
Yeah.
But then he kind of tests its strength.
Yeah, he pulls on it, and it I was like, "Oh, it's breaking."
Well, and on the other hand, the way he pulls on it isn't okay, I'm gonna brace myself on the wall so that I'm not risking falling, and kind of test it with my other arm. It's kind of like, "Hey, I'm holding on to this. Does it hold?" And I'm like, what if it didn't? What if he tested it by going, "Let me see if I can hang off this," and then it didn't? Well, and it doesn't anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it just seemed like the half second before that was very convincing, where he's like, "Thank God I have this thing," and then that half second, I'm like, I don't think you'd test it out that way.
Right.
I don't think you'd just be like, "Let me see if I still stick to this or plummet to my death."
Yeah. So he ties the rope to that thing and then continues on his way. So then after he like cuts the cable that resets the power to the panic room, he there's an explosion underneath him and he jumps through the wind turbine. Like he doesn't even bother to count. He just decides to jump, and he grabs the rope, hooks his leg into the rope, and it's his fake leg gets caught in it, and then he's like dangling from his leg as the thing he was holding onto breaks, and he swings down.
And it's the first interesting shot in the whole movie.
Yeah, you think so?
Where it's spinning around.
Oh yeah, where he's all like,
you're looking down from above him,
yeah.
So for the first time you can actually kind of get a sense of what it's like
to
be that high. It's the only shot in the movie where you actually like look down.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, and so it was actually the only time that my own fear of heights actually kicked in for a second, because you're looking down and it's spinning, and I'm like, oh, it's so disorienting.
Yeah,
and I think it was actually an effective shot. And I was like, for a half second, I thought I was in an action movie.
Yeah, but then he's like hanging upside down by his fake leg, and the fake leg starts to come off. And I'll be honest, I don't know how prosthetic legs connect to tissue and stuff. But like you said, The Rock probably weighs 260 pounds. I don't think that that leg could hold him like that for 10 seconds. But
well, if it could, I'd imagine it'd be difficult to take it off at the end of the day.
Right, yeah. But anyway, The Rock is able to like reorient himself. He climbs back up the rope. The panic room door is starting to close, and he like runs over to it and shoves his leg in the door to keep it from closing. And this is a giant ass door, like a big ass stone wall that's closing, and he just throws his magic leg in there, and it like keeps it from closing. And that's how he gets in the room, and then he meets up with Elon Musk, and then they join forces.
Yeah. And then my next note is from minutes later, because I was like, whatever. They start fighting with people.
Oh, well,
yeah.
It's before that we find out what all this is about. And the reason that you
can go ahead and explain that, because I couldn't even pay attention.
I really can't. And so we find out that Elon Musk, when he first started building the tower, got extorted by a bunch of crime syndicates, and he fought back by when he paid them, he was able to trace the money to all of the crime families' bank accounts, and so he has that information now for some reason. And if they mess with him anymore, he'll turn it over to the authorities, and they'll be able to arrest the crime families. So he has this crazy looking flash drive that has all of the information on it, and that's what the police are gonna need to arrest the crime families. That's how I read it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'm like, okay, so this is all about, like Die Hard, this is all about money. It's like a robbery, basically. So meanwhile, on the ground, Nev Campbell is helping the police figure out where the bad guys will be making their escape for some reason. And they're like, well, maybe they'll go here. No, they're not going to go there. Maybe they'll go here. Nope. Where there's this giant abandoned construction site. Do you think maybe they'll go there?
Yeah. How'd you put that together? You're a really smart one, aren't you?
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, well, how do we know you're not working with your husband, who's one of the bad guys? And she goes, listen, if we go there and the bad guys are there, then you know I'm telling the truth. And the cops are like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. Let's go there. So then they leave. They take Nev Campbell to the construction site. But meanwhile, The Rock and the owner come up with this stupid plan where they're going to pretend to give themselves up to the bad guys. They go to the bad guys, pretend the owner is tied up with duct tape, and then the owner pretends to betray The Rock or something. I really didn't understand what happened there. Yeah,
because they seem to kind of say this was, because you don't actually hear them come up with the plan. It's one of those things where they're like, we're going to use these things to do the thing we're going to do.
Yeah.
You'll find out what it is when we do it. And when it all starts to play out, the guy's like acting like he's betraying the Rock, and the Rock's like, oh no, you were supposed to do this. What are you doing? Oh my God! And he pulls the gun on him and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, the Rock's like, oh, like he as an audience member, you're like, this is the plan, right? They're trying to convince these guys that he's turning on him,
right?
And then a few minutes later, the Rock's like, yeah, it really threw me off when you went off script like that. And I'm like,
right, I almost believed you.
Yeah, and then you're like, so did he not do what was planned,
right,
or
yeah.
was that the
was
plan?
that the whole plan? Yeah, but then like the Rock pulls a sword out of his pants.
Okay, that surprised you too, because I was like, where'd that come from? I must have been dozing off, which is believable.
And it was at this moment that I realized that the Rock never shoots anyone. Like he never has a gun except for like at the beginning of the movie, and then even then he doesn't shoot anyone. Like maybe the Rock has something in his like movie contract that he doesn't shoot anyone to kill them, because he doesn't shoot anyone. There's like a whole room full of guns and dead people, and he doesn't pick up a gun.
Well, I know he shoots people in other movies, but maybe
does he?
Maybe Doom. He definitely killed people in Doom.
Well, that was like before he was like super big, though.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, like
I don't think he shoots anybody in Fast and the Furious. The Rundown, he doesn't shoot anybody. He just punches people. Rundown is an awesome movie.
I don't know. He might shoot someone. I'm sure he doesn't in Walking Tall, because he's got a stick.
He's got a big stick.
2x4.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think even if that's not his deal, to not have guns, I think this movie's, like I said before, even when he does kill that one guy by throwing him off the side, like they're like, let's move on, don't think about it.
Yeah, like Bruce Willis is the hero of Die Hard, but we don't care that he's killing bad guys.
John McClane shot people. He just needed to make a smart-ass remark afterwards.
Right, yeah. When John McClane kills somebody, you don't care. You don't care that he murdered somebody, but now The Rock does it, and you're like, oh man, he threw somebody off a building. I guess he needed really good reasons for doing that. But it doesn't really matter. Anyway, The Rock kills a guy with a sword, which I did not see coming.
Yeah.
And so then they both, Elon Musk and The Rock, run into the giant holodeck room. And you're like, of course that's where they went, because this room only exists for an impractical fight to have a gunfight with the Rock. Meanwhile, on the ground, the cops and Nev Campbell go to where the other bad guys are. And of course they're there. They're all just there waiting. And there's this big shootout with the police. And then Nev Campbell sees the really bad chick, gets into a fight with her, and she starts hitting the horn on the car to alert one of the cops.
Which is a good idea.
Yeah. The super badass chick starts strangling Nev Campbell with a seatbelt while Nev Campbell is like laying on the horn. The cop shows up behind the bad chick, and she gives up. But then Nev Campbell says, hey, and just kicks her in the face, knocking her out. And I'm like, bad form, Nev. She'd given up. She had already surrendered to the police. Bad form. You can't
okay with it.
You can't just kick somebody in the face, Nev.
I thought it was fine. And I was enjoying that Nev Campbell was kicking more butt. I mean, if anybody decides they're going to watch this piece of garbage, just go into it. Allow your mind to approach it as though Nev Campbell is the protagonist and not The Rock.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have a better time.
So back in the tower, it's time for the final confrontation between the head bad guy and The Rock.
It's getting there. People are getting taken out kind of one by one.
One by one.
One gets taken out by a parachute because it's so windy that it would suck a parachute out of the building, yet nothing else is getting blown around.
Yeah. The giant hall of mirrors is so confusing and disorienting, except for The Rock, who knows exactly where everyone is, and he's just picking people off left and right.
Well, that scene that we didn't actually get of him feeling around the walls to find the door was actually his moment to get the layout of things really well.
Right. So The Rock basically gets rid of everybody. Elon Musk gets shot, and the Rock hides him in a little corner somewhere. And the Rock goes and approaches the last bad guy, like the boss bad guy. And it's a moment that's eerily similar to the beginning of the movie where the bad guy is holding his child. And what would you do?
The bomb.
Yeah. And it's like, what would you do differently if you could do it again? And you're like,
hostage.
And you're like, and so like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of a neat dramatic thing because like everything that is The Rock now is based on that one moment where he reacted a certain way. And if he does it differently, nope, he's just behind him. It's like all of the drama that was like naturally infused into that moment is just thrown out the window immediately because the bad guy's looking at a mirror. And
I feel like that drama wasn't actually even there.
Yeah.
Just because it's so cliche. But I guess, it kind of gets taken out of it.
The Rock just says,
one thing you should know.
The Rock says, like, I'm behind you, and just kicks the guy off the building and throws a grenade at him for good measure. So it's like, did the grenade kill him, or was it the fall that killed him? And who cares?
Yeah, it's a mid-air explosion.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing you get to seeing someone fall. And, I had kind of a reverse response to that. Because when he's like, one thing you should know first, I was like, I don't even, what's it going to be, you know?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, I'm behind you. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of fun. Like, I felt a little silly for having not figured that out because it's a room of mirrors.
Uh-huh.
But I kind of enjoyed it, actually, for my part. But then, speaking of drama, then the Rock gets down to the ground, and there's like all this like I don't think it's actually slow motion.
Oh wait, no, you're jumping ahead because there's something very important that happens, which is the Rock gets his daughter back, and because of the rapidly spreading fire, the rapidly spreading fire, he sits down and holds his daughter and gives up. He gives up. He like sits down on the ground and starts crying. Meanwhile, on the ground, Neve Campbell finds the Rock's iPad, and she knows how to use it for some reason.
Oh, right.
She restarts the fire suppression system, which at this point should be beyond destroyed, from the damage of this giant fire. And then she makes a joke about turning it on and off again, like from the beginning of the movie. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you're right. That happened.
This massive fire goes out in a matter of seconds.
Oh yeah.
But luckily, the hero of the movie spent the last 5 minutes sitting on the ground crying after giving up.
You know, I must have dozed off again there because I didn't notice that he did that. I do remember the Neve Campbell stuff with the iPad and rolling my eyes on that. But
yeah.
Okay, so then the Rock gets down to the ground somehow.
Yeah.
They go up because the building's not on fire anymore.
Uh-huh.
And everything's like so super drama, like
super slow.
Oh my God, is he go find? I'm like, we know he's gonna find his family. They're down there safe. God, they've been there for like the last hour.
He's like yelling for his wife, like Rocky yelling for Adrian.
Yeah, just like if he doesn't catch up with them, it's like the fucking American Tail, and it's gonna take 3 months for him to get across the country and find them.
Yeah,
no, they're there. You're gonna find them.
Yeah,
sure. Actually, I don't even mind that the Rock is screaming for them because he wants to find his family, but it's really the music and the way it's shot that makes it seem like I should be on the edge of my seat. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
All the threat stuff's gone. All it is now is the laborious procedure of finding each other.
Yeah, the movie could have been 2 minutes shorter without this slow motion scene of him looking for his family.
And it should be shorter.
It should be shorter. The movie is way too long.
And then there's more.
Yeah.
And then there's more. Because then The Rock's like, we should go home. I don't know why I make The Rock talk like Rocky. He doesn't, but
because it'd be a better movie with Stallone.
No, but anyway, he says, "Let's go home," and I'm like, "Wait, hold on. You still have like an 8-inch puncture in your upper left quadrant.
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't go home.
You've got a giant.
Go directly to the hospital.
He's still got a knife wound in his arm from when the guy stole his purse." Like he's really banged up. He should get some medical attention. And then like at the end of Die Hard, he makes eye contact with the main cop guy, and I started going, oh man, if this is just like Die Hard, then like a bad guy should pop up at the very end, like at the end of Die Hard, and it doesn't. The end.
No, instead the guy's like, it's really nice to meet you, and The Rock is like, who the fuck are you?
Pleased to meet you too.
But they haven't interacted at all.
I know,
There's
right?
no reason The Rock would give a rat's ass about meeting this guy.
Yeah.
He has no idea he even exists. They have had no interaction.
In Die Hard,
in Die Hard, John McClane and that guy had been talking the entire movie.
Yeah.
They had been each other's like rock.
Yeah.
No pun intended here. But like, good God, it was so dumb. And then at the end, after everything's gone wrong, they're like, hey, Hong Kong Elon Musk, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
And he's like, rebuild. And I'm like, what if Jurassic Park had ended that way?
Yeah.
He goes, Mr. Hammond, I've decided not to endorse your park. And John Hammond went, well, I'm going to build another one.
Yeah. I'm not going to uninvent dinosaurs.
The freaking end. Good God.
Yeah. So that was Skyscraper from 2018. Not a good movie.
No. It might be enjoyable if you're with a bunch of people and maybe drinking.
Yeah.
But otherwise, save your 2 hours that feels like 3 hours.
Yeah. The movie could have they should have made a rated R movie with a lot of violence. I think it would have been a lot more fun to watch. Give The Rock some more fun things to say and do. I mean, if you're going to make Die Hard, make Die Hard. Don't make Die Hard's 5. Make Die Hard 1.
If you're going to make Hard, just don't. Just go watch Die Hard.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. That's what I feel like doing right now is just watching Die Hard.
Yeah, just release that in the theaters again. It's okay. People will pay to see it.
Die Hard's great.
It doesn't cost any money to do that. Yeah. Throw it out there for a short run.
Yeah.
Maybe around Christmas.
It's got to be like the 30th anniversary at some point soon.
Yeah.
Well, that was Skyscraper.
Yeah, it was.
And then the very end of the movie, there's like a credit sequence where we just there's
I just turned it off immediately.
Well, the movie floats around all the CGI, it just shows you all the sets of the movie, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I will give the movie credit that the fire looked real. I bet none of the movie there was any real fire.
Yeah.
It looked real, but like we said before, there's no smoke. So.
Yeah, the fire itself, I'll agree. It does look real. I didn't even think about it, which is probably a good sign for the effects being effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of the visual effects were really well done. It was just in a bad movie, like you just didn't care about anything.
Yeah, I think if this movie had been edited, if it had more humor,
mm-hmm.
and if the cinematography had been such that it was interesting, like that one shot where he was spinning around,
yeah,
then it actually could have been fun, but it didn't fire on any of those cylinders.
Yeah. Have you ever seen The Towering Inferno?
No.
I haven't either, but I hear it's a very good movie.
But I was tempted when I was looking this up, and I was tempted to watch another movie called Skyscraper, starring Anna Nicole Smith, and then reviewing that alongside you. But I didn't want to watch that either.
All right. Well, I think we're going to end the show because it's been on for long enough. Thanks.
We only saved you a half hour.
Yeah.
Listeners.
If you enjoyed the format of the show this week, let us know. Maybe we'll do some more like this, like a deep dive into a movie. But Matt, anything to plug? Anything you want to share with the world?
No, not really. I got nothing right now.
Yeah, I don't have anything either. I would like to add, we had some interesting comments from Instagram this past week. about assassins, and let me see if I can pull that up quickly. One Instagram fan disagreed with our assessment of the movie Assassins, and he said,
like they said it was good.
He says he's just stating his opinion, but this movie was way ahead of its time when it comes to action and storytelling. He can name a number of action movies made today that are not even on the level of what Assassins was, and that was 21 years ago.
True.
He loved the funeral scene when Stallone had the fake arm cast, and for that time it was really impressive. And I told that's Robert100_ on Instagram, and I was like, oh, well, thanks for chiming in, Robert. Thanks for getting engaged with the show. So you can do that too. Send us a message on the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. We're on there. But if that's the end of the reel, we will see you next week in film.